G'day guys, Wes Zandt here from Australia Trade Training College in the Down Under Centre, and I'm joined by Steve Tran. So Steve, welcome mate. You're one of our Metal Fabricator assessors.
Yes, thanks for being here. It's great to be here. Looking forward to sharing some knowledge about the journey that the applicants will go on.
Yeah, perfect mate. Well, we love it. It's pretty cool to have an assessor join us. So guys, let's just run through the process quickly. So a skills assessment. A skills assessment is required if you're applying for a skilled independent visa, or depending on the passport you hold, if you're applying for a 482 visa and you have a certain passport and you've been asked to complete a skills assessment, this video is for you. Or if you're applying for a skilled visa, or maybe you're lucky enough to apply, an employer is going to offer you a 186 visa, which is employer sponsored. A skills assessment is required. So a skills assessment is broken into two stages. The first part of the skills assessment is always the most challenging. It's where you need to prove on paper that you are a metal fabricator. So you've got pathway 1 and pathway 2. For most of you guys, you'll be pathway 1. This means that you don't have an Australian qualification, and you're going to apply for the visa pretty much outside of Australia in the skills assessment. You don't hold an Australian qualification, you're known as a pathway 1. If you hold an Australian qualification, you're known as a pathway 2. Now, either way, there's two stages to the skills assessment. The first part is what we call is a documentary assessment, where you need to prove on paper you have the necessary skills. So you have to have a relevant qualification and 3 years of experience. So let's say you did a 3-year apprenticeship and you just finished you got your papers today or whenever. After that 3 years, you qualify. It's not 3 years after, it's 3 years with a relevant qualification. Maybe you never completed a qualification. That's absolutely fine. You just need to prove 5 years of full-time paid work experience. So how do you prove it? Photos, videos, references, pay documents, tax documents. It's, probably the hardest part of the whole application. The second part of the skills assessment is what we refer to as a technical interview. And that's you having a chat with one of our assessors, and that's why we've invited Steve to make this video with us today. Let's give a bit of an insight of what happens. Now, listeners, we have a service that we provide. We deliver the skills assessments, but we're also here to give migration advice as well. So we have a service called an agency service. So you'll have a chat with one of our consultants first, see if you're eligible. But what's involved in that? From the UK, for example, we charge a fee of £600 plus VAT. If you're from Australia, it's $1,050. If you're out, if you're in Australia applying, it's $1,050 plus GST for our agency service. What does that include? That includes, we'll give you support through the skills assessment. We'll give you support through gathering the years of evidence you need for the visa. We'll give you English test preparation. We'll give you employment support via the DUC Employment Hub. We'll even give you a free relocation call with one of our relocation agents who's a previous migrant who's living in the state that you're planning on moving to. That call will happen later on when the visa's lodged. How we do everything, guys, is we give you access to the DUC client portal. This portal is designed and developed individually for the applicant, and it's how they prepare and it's how you prepare. So we'll tell you what we need your CV to say, your references, what pay documents, what tax documents, if you're self-employed, you're employed, whatever country you're from. We've got a program there to advise you what we need for you to prove financially, but then we'll also tell you what you need to gather for photos and videos, and there's examples on the portal of what's required. The person at the other end of the portal will be a client manager and also one of our assessors. So, for example, there might be Steve on the other end of the portal as well, or known as a client manager. So the idea is we'll tell you what you need to get. You keep coming backwards and forwards till we've got everything we need, and then you'll pay your TRA fees, and then we'll deliver the assessment. So, Steve, documentary assessment, mate, probably the hardest part. What do you feel is the most challenging part for a metal fabricator to get through the documentary assessment?
Yeah, look, for metal fabricators, the hardest part I find with their documentary evidence is that they may have worked at a workplace that is maybe closed now, or
Yeah.
maybe their current employer is just not willing to work with getting or collecting documents. This happens all the time, and believe me, it can be a very stressful time for the applicant, but that's the beauty of having your client manager and your assessor on the other end getting that information that we need. It really takes the sting out of the stressfulness of having to get that themselves. So, as long as it's a good team on board, it's going to be quite a smooth process for them.
Yeah. Now, look, we mentioned photos and videos. Now, what if someone's never taken photos and videos in the past? Obviously, we overcome that by them working in that place, but maybe they haven't done a certain task that you require for a long time. How do they get around that without providing photos and videos?
Yeah, look, what we need to do essentially, we need 96 points to gain a positive outcome for the skills assessment. Now, this will not mean anything to the applicant at all. Every unit of competency that is in the skills assessment has a point system that, if the candidate didn't do, let's just say, for example, the candidate did some gas metal arc welding but is unable to TIG weld, then that's fine. We've got lots of different units of competency that we can use instead and gather information for instead of we don't expect people to be a master welder or a master fabricator. It's a case by case situation that we work closely with the person.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess, look, documentary assessment, there's so many things they've got to provide and everything. Give us an example of like maybe a video that you would expect to see. Now, on the portal, you'll get examples of it, but Steve, give us an example of what sort of video you might want to see.
Sure. So let's just go to maybe gas metal arc welding. A lot of fabricators are using that in today's world. Quick, easy process. Now, when they're at work, all they'll need to do is maybe have their phone, set it up on the bench, and just we need to see full safety actions happening, correct PPE obviously, and laying the weld down. And then after, just a couple of photos of the actual weld quality. What the assessor is looking for is looking for the common defects found in the weld, and also, you taking a photo and showing us that you're able to do the weld is adding
Yeah.
to that evidence. Right? We don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the world's best weld that you've ever seen. I'm not testing the strength. I'm not doing an NDT test through the Bluetooth on the computer. I'm merely looking at your safety protocols, how you're doing the weld, and the eventual quality of it.
Yeah. So I guess the migrant's telling a story. They're saying I work for this company, and then they're going to prove it financially. They're going to prove it by references. They're going to put it to their CV, and they're going to explain the task. And there's obviously, you mentioned the 96 units that, so there's certain wording that you want to see, and that's all in the portal. And then when you do the technical interview, you'll also be, encouraging them to use the correct wording and everything for a successful assessment. Photos and videos, like it sounds like a lot, but it's not really. When we look at a metal fabricator, it's, shaping, bending steel. It could be, give us an example of what a metal fabricator's task might be.
Sure. So we'll go to a unit. Let's just use a very simple one for this instance. So MEM 05005 will be carry out mechanical cutting. Uh, we're basically asking you, show me how you cut your material up before you put together your fabrication or the welding. So we're looking for photos of you maybe using a bandsaw, obviously full PPE and the correct procedures, a little video and show us how you operate that safely, and maybe a couple of photos. It's as
Yeah.
simple as that.
Yeah. And then that's it. And that's a unit. And I guess when they're doing the videos, they can probably incorporate many units of competency in the one video as well. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely correct. So if you're using that bandsaw, for example, for the mechanical cutting unit, we're also looking at the safe working procedures, which is in the core. We're also looking at your PPE, which is another unit. So we can actually incorporate, you might be able to get, say, 3 to 4 units of competency in the one video.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fantastic. It does make it a lot easier. Now, they get through the documentary assessment part. They then have the technical interview. So you've got yourself, an invigilator from immigration. So they're there to make sure that no coaching or cheating is happening. And it's a fair assessment. And then they've got yourself, the assessor, and then the migrant. So people get nervous about the technical interview, but there's no need to be nervous. It's a general chat. I know you mentioned in a previous video, because you also assess the welders and fitters, that it's generally just like two colleagues at work having a chat. Do you want to talk a bit more about that?
Exactly right. Look, nerves play a big part in having to talk to anybody through maybe a test or a sort of. I mean, I'm nervous right now talking to you as my
Yeah,
heart's beating a million miles an hour. But
yeah,
look,
it's hard.
what we do is we establish that working connection before we go into the technical interview, which is, I'm picking up the phone and I'm talking to you. I'm saying, look, this is what you're going to expect. This is how we're going to act. And it's basically a chat between the two work colleagues when we're in there.
Yeah,
The beauty of this portal and what we're doing is establishing that connection and then we're going in there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of cool. So, what might be some questions that you might ask in a technical interview for a metal fabricator?
Sure. So look, I'll just go back to the mechanical cutting unit again. A question will be something along the lines of, "Hey, Wes, tell me what type of machines do you use to cut materials?" So, you know, it's structured like we're just two work colleagues having a chat with each other. It's nothing that is out of the ordinary or out of your scope of work.
And what if I'm the migrant and I'm not understanding your question? How do you go about that?
Sure.
So I get a fair assessment.
Yeah. So what's really important to understand, Wes, is that I work directly for people all over the world. Okay, so accents, terminology, they all come into play here, and I am tuned to understand different terminology and what that means for in the Australian workforce. If they don't understand the question, an assessor in Australia has to abide by what's called the Fair Assessment Guidelines. Now, what an assessor needs to do is needs to provide reasonable adjustment for the assessment to make it fair for the candidate. So, if you don't understand any of the questions, the candidate simply has to say, "Steve, I don't understand," and I will make a very real life situation, or I'll ask a different way in which the candidate is able to understand what I need.
Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. Because I think, again, like when we speak to people at the first, we do a consultation with them where you get a free consultation with the DEC before you get signed up. People are, what's involved in the technical interview. Now, I know you've got other, on the portal that people get access to. There's actually further detailed information, a bit more going into a bit more what's involved in the technical interview. But, you know, most of the time it is just a chit chat. Do you often see people struggle with the technical interview?
Not really when we get into the technical interview. Look, Wes, I'll be totally honest. I've had calls the night before a technical interview's been booked in the morning with one of the applicants, and they've gone, I'm absolutely nervous. I don't know what to do. And it's that reassurance and say, hey, mate, like this is nothing that you haven't done before. You've done the hard part. The
Yeah,
documentary is the hard part. The technical interview is the easy part.
yeah, yeah. Well said. It is because as you say, those units of competency. That's what we're gathering by the portal. So you're showing that, and we're working with the migrant to get the documentation they need that makes a technical interview a lot easier. Mate, any tips before people would sit a technical interview? Any tips you'd like to give them?
Definitely. Look, the biggest tip I can give any applicant is to study their applicant kit before they come. Now, you would have already done it and that'd be fresh in their mind because, it's setting you up for the technical interview, essentially, the stage two documentary evidence. The applicant kit, the written applicant kit is probably the best tool to use to prepare for your technical interview.
Yeah, fantastic, mate. Well, look, thanks again for joining us. I think these videos, and we'll continue to make them. I know you've got some good videos in the portal coming up as well. But guys, if you are a fabricator and you're looking to head to Oz, there's lots of work in Australia. It's an amazing country, to come and migrate to. And the skills assessments is probably the challenging part, that and your English test. But yeah, if you want to click on our website, hit the free visa points calculator up, or if you've got an inquiry, shoot something over to info@downundercenter.com. All right, cheers again, Steve. Thanks, everyone. See you next
Thanks,
time.
everyone.